The beginning of the Sichuan's maiden sea trial represents a turning point in the development of this new class of warship, and understanding why requires looking carefully at the many layers of work, engineering, and planning that led up to this moment. A sea trial is not simply a symbolic event, it is a technical milestone that tells engineers, planners, and the Navy that the ship has reached a level of maturity where its systems can be evaluated in a real operating environment. Because the Sichuan is the first of the Type 076 class, every outcome observed during its first time at sea has direct consequences for decisions that will be made about future ships, future equipment, and future operational concepts. Before a large and complex vessel like this can begin sea trials, it must pass through multiple stages of construction and testing. These stages involve assembling the hull, installing major machinery, integrating propulsion units, laying out electrical distribution systems, and connecting the ship's command and control networks. Each system must then be checked individually and in groups to ensure that they not only function on their own but also interact properly with other systems. This process is called integration, and it is one of the most challenging phases in modern warship construction. When the ship is still inside the shipyard, engineers can access all components easily, monitor them closely, and make necessary adjustments. But they cannot replicate the stresses, vibrations, and dynamic loads that occur during real operation at sea. That is why moving from dockside work to sea trials marks a fundamental transition. It shifts the project from a controlled engineering environment to a live operational test. Because the Sichuan is the first vessel of its class, it carries the responsibility of proving the design's viability. During the first sea trial, engineers will observe how the ship behaves in many different conditions. They will evaluate how quickly it accelerates, how smoothly it turns, how stable it remains at various speeds, and how its power generation responds to changes in demand. For a ship equipped with an electromagnetic catapult, the power system must be especially robust. It must sustain ordinary propulsion needs while also preparing to deliver short bursts of extremely high electrical energy at controlled intervals. Even though the initial sea trial is not meant to test aircraft launch operations, the performance of the power system during this trial will determine whether the ship is ready for later stages of testing. The Sichuan's size adds complexity to every aspect of its testing. A ship with a displacement above 40,000 tons requires careful management of its center of gravity, structural rigidity, and internal distribution of fuel, water, aircraft, vehicles, and personnel. During the sea trial, engineers will measure how the ship's weight distribution affects stability and how the hull reacts to waves of different heights and frequencies. They will gather data on roll, pitch, yaw, and vibration, because these characteristics influence not only the ship's performance but also the safety of future flight operations. A ship that carries fixed-wing aircraft needs to maintain predictable motion so that aircraft can take off and land safely. Even though actual flight operations will not begin in this first trial, the baseline measurements taken now will be used to assess whether modifications or adjustments are needed. The dual-island layout of the Sichuan introduces additional technical considerations. With two separate island structures, one dedicated to navigation and the other to managing aviation operations, the ship can improve its workflow and separate functions more efficiently. However, two islands also alter the airflow across the flight deck, which can affect aircraft stability during takeoff and landing. Engineers will use the early sea trials to monitor how the ship's shape interacts with wind patterns at various headings and speeds. Although the most detailed flight-related testing will occur later, the initial data collected during this phase is essential for ensuring the safety and effectiveness of future aviation operations. The rapid timetable from launch to sea trial also highlights the efficiency of the construction process. Completing the necessary outfitting, installation, and testing within such a short period indicates that the shipyard had well-organized production lines and strong quality control. Problems encountered during the building of the first ship of a class often cause delays, but the Sichuan progressed steadily. This suggests that the design was mature enough when construction began that large-scale revisions were not needed. Such stability in the design phase allows construction teams to focus on precise engineering rather than reworking major components. This contributes to keeping the project on schedule and reduces long-term costs. Another aspect that makes the Sichuan significant is the combination of functions it is designed to perform. Traditional amphibious assault ships are built to transport troops, vehicles, landing craft, and helicopters to support amphibious operations. The Type 076 expands on this by adding the capability to operate fixed-wing aircraft. This dramatically changes what the ship can contribute to a fleet. It becomes capable of providing airborne early warning, air cover, electronic support, and potentially strike missions. These functions normally require an aircraft carrier. By creating a ship that blends amphibious capacity with elements of carrier aviation, the Navy increases its flexibility. It can distribute aviation capability more widely across its fleet, allowing more coverage across larger areas and reducing reliance on its largest carriers. Beyond the ship's technical and operational roles, the maiden sea trial highlights an evolution in naval strategy. Introducing a ship that can perform both amphibious and aviation roles suggests an emphasis on multifunctional platforms capable of supporting varied missions. This can include amphibious landings, long-range patrols, task group operations, and wide-area presence missions. The ability to operate fixed-wing aircraft from a ship that is not a full-size carrier also helps relieve operational pressure on the main carrier force. Instead of concentrating all fixed-wing aviation capability onto a small number of large carriers, the Navy can spread this capability across more ships, allowing more simultaneous operations and increasing resilience. The early sea trial is not designed to test the full range of missions. It focuses on the core functions that must work before more advanced tasks can be attempted. Engineers will check propulsion behavior at different speeds, test steering mechanisms and rudder response, verify electrical stability under various loads, monitor cooling systems, and observe how the ship's structural components react to motion. These basic assessments are essential because failures in any of these areas could compromise safety or prevent further testing. The successful completion of the first trial will clear the ship to proceed into subsequent stages, which will gradually introduce more demanding tasks until the ship is ready for acceptance and later commissioning. Because this is the first ship of its class, the data collected during the maiden sea trial will not only help prepare the Sichuan for future operations but will also influence the design of any later ships in the series. If engineers notice that certain systems perform better or worse than expected, they can adjust the design for the next ship. If some internal layouts create maintenance challenges, modifications can be introduced early in the production of additional units. The lead ship always reveals issues that cannot be fully predicted during the planning stage. The earlier these are discovered, the more efficient the correction process becomes. The event also demonstrates the growing industrial capacity to build complex warships. Constructing a ship that combines large-scale amphibious functions with advanced fixed-wing aviation technology requires skill across multiple technical sectors, including hull construction, integrated electric power systems, aviation support equipment, propulsion engineering, and combat system integration. Successfully bringing such a ship to sea within a relatively short timeline reflects coordinated industrial planning and strong engineering capability. The maiden sea trial of the Sichuan is significant not because of a single feature but because it represents the intersection of many developments: a new ship class reaching the sea for the first time, the integration of advanced systems into a large amphibious platform, the demonstration of rapid and efficient construction, and the start of a testing process that will influence naval operations and future shipbuilding decisions. It marks the moment when the design transitions from engineering plans and pure side tests into real-world performance, a step that is essential for proving the ship's capability and shaping the future of the class.